Terrific answers. Thanks, Paul. Look, one of the most important reasons that the group A Million Mums for Informed Consent was founded was the very fact that nobody gets between a lioness and her cubs. School is due to return in New South Wales in early term 4 in October, and many parents are very concerned as the vaccine mandates have lowered to the age of 12, and now there is discussion of a new approval for the Pfizer vaccine for children aged 5 to 11, which includes all primary school children. Should parents have a legal strategy in advance to notify their schools that nobody touches their children and that it would be entirely inappropriate to put masks on their children, to discuss COVID and to discuss COVID vaccination with the children, even under the age of 12, whereby there is this entirely new idea of teaching children that they are somehow capable of giving informed consent. And I believe that is for children over the age of 12. But regardless, what should parents do in advance to notify the schools that their children are off limits?
For me personally, this one really cuts to the bone. As a minister of religion for many, many years, one of my principal things in all of my activism, particularly fighting state-condoned child abuse and child trafficking, which is what I've been really focused on for the last 4 years, and the shocking situations that it's another rabbit hole you don't want to go down that's been going on for a long time in this country. It's an appalling situation with children being removed from parents. But this matter around the schools is very, very close to the bone for me, because we have like you said, it's like the cub thing. It's like I actually used it once discussing this matter with some solicitors about a mother that beat up a caseworker when a 1-year-old child was ripped off her while she was breastfeeding. And they called it the guerrilla strategy. But my thing was that, that you can't, what animal on the planet doesn't want to protect its young? You try and take a baby giraffe or a wombat or a duck or a dog, or you pick any animal on the planet and they'll fight to the death to protect their young. So to answer your question, this cuts to the very bone of what we are as human beings. And my personal view on this is that at this point in time, I'm so concerned and distressed with what I'm seeing that, one, if I had children at school age, fortunately I don't, I've got grandchildren, but my advice to my daughter is going to be to not let that child back in school. Definitely. I'm not letting my child out of any children or grandchildren in my care out of my sight, because this is out of control. Since you're doing a podcast, I'm not going to swear here, but I would in a more personal situation. You'd hear me unload completely. I'm not in my uncensored territory here. This is massive, right? Now, any school that tries to enforce something like this upon a child, or to give a child informed consent to make their own choice when they're that young, when they're not even decided that they're old enough to vote or anything else, but now suddenly they can choose to take a very poisonous injection through peer pressure, they can be sued and should be sued, right? And that's battery and assault, right? That's a most appalling, heinous crime to commit. So any person that's complicit in that in a school is fully culpable and should be held fully culpable. But fighting for that right after it's happened is not a solution, because this is a non-reversible situation once they're injected. So my concerns at the moment are so grave that, one, I would not allow the child back into school. I'd be pulling all the kids out of school everywhere, and I'd be, excuse me, I'd be going, no way, right? I wouldn't allow it. Secondly, I'll be writing letters to all of those principals, and I'll be writing some really, really, really hard-hitting letters about their rights and what they're actually doing. And if they're going to support this kind of activities, they themselves are fully culpable, and they need to be made aware of that as well. There are templates out there. Nathan Buckley put a great one together. On my own website, I've got a blog on my own website, paulrobertburton.com, and there's some things there, but there's a whole section of know your rights, and there are some letters about these things to write about these injections and stuff. There's some templates people have put together outlining the various laws and stuff that are in place. But I would be writing to the schools now, informing them, and I would be pulling all the children out of schools, because there are no schools then. And in my view, I would rather homeschool and take the children out. And if the government's got an issue with that, well, hard cheese, at least they're safe. But until we're through this, and until people actually realise what's happening here and how terrible this is, that's my position. I think it is that bad. So yeah, pull your children out of school. Don't put them back in school if you're really worried. I wouldn't take the risk, because I've heard, I'm thinking yourself aware of a case of a mature age person that was force injected the other day that shouldn't have been. We're also hearing of cases possibly in the detention centres where they're trying this as well. They've gone ballistic and they're overriding everyone's rights. So we're moving into more of a fascist type situation. And the way of dealing with fascism is very different to that of a democracy. So pull the children out of school. That's my rule number one. Two, write to those schools and inform them that those children are not coming back until there's a full assurance that no one's going near them. There's going to be no injecting in any schools of school children, and there's going to be no way that children are going to be imbued with some kind of informed consent so that they take an injection because some wally is telling them that if they don't, they can't have slumber parties or hang out with their mates. It's a disgraceful situation, Jason.